From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Anne Waodo.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, 6 months after the gruesome murder of 24-year-old Youth Corps member Salomia Daidu, court finds the primary suspect Oluwatimileyin Ajayi guilty, sentences him to death by hanging. After months of consultations with relevant stakeholders, President Bola Tinubu finally appends his signature to the 4 tax bills recently passed by the National Assembly. Senate Committee on Public Accounts issues a 10-day ultimatum to NNPCL to respond to financial queries related to alleged discrepancies in its audited financial statements. And on the international scene, the U.S. Defense Secretary describes America's strikes on Iranian nuclear sites as weakened as historically successful.
On business news tonight, federal government launches national flood insurance policy and implementation framework to support individuals and businesses in flood-prone communities.
On sports news tonight, Cristiano Ronaldo signs a 2-year extension with Saudi Arabia's Al Nassr following months of speculation over which team he would sign for next season.
From the nation's capital, President Bola Tinubu orders a comprehensive personnel and skills gap audit of the Federal Civil Service as move to deepen capacity of its personnel.
We begin tonight with judicial matters for the family of late Youth Corps member Salomia Daidu, who was murdered and dismembered. Justice is coming at last. And this is because the Nasarawa State High Court, sitting in Lafia, the state capital, has sentenced Oluwatimileyin Ajayi to death by hanging over the alleged murder of Mr. Daidu. The judgment was passed by Justice Simon Aboki under Section 221 of the Penal Code of Northern Nigeria, which prescribes the death penalty for such an offense. In this next report, our correspondent Halima Gayam takes a thorough look at the brutal murder of Mr. Daidu and the subsequent conviction of the suspected murderer.
On Sunday, January 12, the nation was shaken by the gruesome murder of Salomia Daidu, a 24-year-old Kogi-born member of the National Youth Service Corps. The brutality of the crime allegedly committed by Oluwatimileyin Ajayi, who claims to be her boyfriend, left many stunned as reports emerged that her head was severed and body dismembered. During his parade by the police, Oluwatimileyin Ajayi confessed to the murder.
It's not something I really planned on. Something that it happened on that day, and it happened. It's not like I had a plan in mind.
Since her demise, many accounts of the incident surfaced as friends and family grappled with the shock.
Salomia was someone that had ambition. She wanted to be like her boss, the person she's working with. That was the kind of person she wanted to be. She had too much ambitions.
I want the government to make them help me, make it the matter I said to. I beg. Make them help me beg the people.
Mary, you will help me.
5 days after his arrest, he was charged for culpable homicide, an offense punishable by death, according to Section 221 of the Penal Code of Northern Nigeria. He would eventually change his plea, denying the allegation of murder. The suspect was remanded at the Lafia Custodial Center without an option of bail. The trial commenced on March 17 as the Nasarawa state government took over the case. Hearing on the substantive case started with the court granting accelerated hearing for 4 days. After the prosecution and defense teams presented their cases, final written addresses were adopted on May 20 and June 26, slated for judgment. On Judgment Day, lawyers arrived in Nasarawa State High Court. The defendant, Oluwatimileyin Ajayi, is brought to court. For 2 hours, the presiding judge, Justice Simon Aboki, finds the suspect guilty of the murder of late Salomia Daidu and subsequently sentences him to death by hanging.
The law has taken its course. Because of the peculiar nature of this case and the accelerated hearing it was given by the judiciary, we have no option. We are lawyers. We only assisted the defendant in presenting his case.
The court relied on two things. First, for us to prove this type of offenses or any criminal offenses, we are expected to do two things. Either to bring a direct evidence of what happened or the confessional statement or the circumstantial evidence. Now, in this case, even though we don't have a direct evidence of what transpired in that room, however, we were able to provide circumstantial evidence, which actually goes to show what transpired.
Salomia Daidu's family say they will follow through to ensure justice is served.
That I'm not getting my daughter back, but this journey, I was trying to make sure that we get to this point of judgment so that the remaining youth, their life will be safe.
The convict is taken back to the custody of the Lafia Custodial Center. Oluwatimileyin Ajayi has 90 days, which is about 3 months, to appeal the judgment, after which, if he fails to, the Nasarawa State Ministry of Justice will have to write to the governor of Nasarawa State, Abdullahi Sule, to sign his death warrant to implement the judgment of the High Court. Halima Agayam, Channels Television News.
In the Federal Capital Territory, Justice Mohammed Umar of the Federal High Court, Abuja, has fixed September the 22nd, 2025 for hearing in the suit on the authentic National Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP. The judge fixed the date for definite hearing, including all motions against the suit filed by the embattled National Secretary, Senator Samuel Anyanwu, based on agreement of the parties. The matter, which was coming before Justice Umar for the first time, had earlier been fixed for judgment by Justice Inyang Ekwo before the plaintiff brought an application for amendment on his original process. On Thursday's proceedings, Mr. Anyanwu, who was represented by Njemanzi Ako, informed the court that the matter was originally slated for mention, adding that the plaintiff had received a letter from the fifth defendant requesting that the case be adjourned till September. Mr. Njemanzi Ako told the court that while they are not against the request for adjournment, it would appreciate a shorter date for the court. Other parties represented in the court also aligned themselves with this position of the plaintiff. Counsel to Ude Okoye, Paul Erokoro, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, said the issue currently before the court had been resolved by the Supreme Court, and he will be bringing an application with an attachment of the judgment of the Supreme Court. Responding to this, Justice Umar directed all parties to file their responses to the motion for amendment by Mr. Anyanwu. In the meantime, staying in the FCT, Justice Emeka Nwite of the Federal High Court, Abuja, has declined a move by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, to cross-examine its third witness on the ongoing alleged money laundering case against the immediate past governor of Kogi State, Yahya Bello. Delivering the ruling, Justice Nwite notes that there was no provision in law that permits the court to allow the prosecution to re-examine its witness in the manner proposed. On the ruling against the cross-examination of the prosecution, witness 3 by the EFCC, the judge agreed that the counsel to the defendants that the prosecution can only cross-examine after it has declared the witness a hostile one. During this examination, Michelia Bata, who's an account compliance officer with Zenith Bank, confirmed that certificates of identification were attached to the statements of account provided by the bank and the 7 sets of documents presented as requested. But the court thereafter admitted the statements of account of Kogi State government, the House administration, and 6 others as exhibits. The witness on subpoena then explained the modalities of withdrawal limits allowed for individuals, corporate organizations, and governments, saying that before the cashless policy, it was actually pegged at 10 million naira for government. The prosecution then took him to the 23rd of May 2016 on the printed documents pointing out a transaction under the name Abdulsalami Hudu. After these examinations, the judge adjourned the case to June the 27th by the defendant's counsel. Nigeria's door is now open for business. Those are words from President Bola Tinubu as he signed the 4 tax reform bills into law today. He was speaking after the short ceremony which took place in the presidential villa, which was attended by the leadership of the National Assembly, some legislators, the chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, some ministers and aides of the president. The 4 bills, the Nigeria Tax Bill, the Nigeria Tax Administration Bill, the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, and the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill were all passed by the National Assembly after extensive consultations with various interest groups and stakeholders.
The tax reform bills.
The leadership of the National Assembly and some legislators, the chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, a chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, the chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, some ministers and aides of the president. They are in the State House for the signing into law of 4 tax reform bills by President Bola Tinubu. The bills are signed without much ceremony. Speaking afterwards, the president says the occasion signals a new dawn for the country.
We are in transit. We have changed the rule. We have changed some of the misgivings. We have opened the door for new economy, business opportunity. We are showing that Nigeria is truly, truly ready and open for business. Easy in, easy out.
The chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum salutes what he terms a major reform.
The states have seen tremendous increase in resources since the reforms have begun, and a lot more will be seen with this new tax reform bill.
This commendation continues when State House correspondents are briefed by some of the guests.
I believe that with consultations and the painstaking nature of the legislative processes that we've taken, I believe we brought out bills that seek the aspirations of Nigerians.
I think that at the end of the day, by next year, when this thing starts to roll in, the subnationals again should be expecting an increase in their monthly revenue, which we know that it should be to the benefits of Nigerians at their various homes in local governments.
These 4 bills are said to be for the people's benefit.
These reforms are not about raising more taxes. I think people get it wrong. These tax laws, they are now laws, are pro-poor in particular. More than 1/3 of workers in both the private and public sector will now be exempted completely from PAYE. You will not have to pay personal income tax. What this means is that there will be more money in the hands of the ordinary Nigerian to take care of their daily needs.
We have full 6 months for both sensitization, planning, and also considering the fiscal year of the government. Because when you have this kind of change, it's not what you do mid-year, because if the application of law is better, you start from the beginning of the year. So effective dates, by God's grace, will be 1st of January 2026.
So as one journey ends, another journey begins. Now, the expectation going forward is that the implementation phase will be completed right when it should, on the 1st of January 2026. From the Presidential Villa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, we'll bring you more on the tax reform bills. Plus, Governor Obasani of Kaduna State visits families of the attack and some travelers from Kaduna to Plateau. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 coming to you live on Channels Television from Lagos. A reminder of our main stories. 6 months after the gruesome murder of 24-year-old Youth Corps member Salomia Daidu, court finds the primary suspect, Oluwatimileyin Ajayi, guilty, sentences him to death by hanging. After months of consultations with relevant stakeholders, President Bola Tinubu finally appends his signature to the 4 tax bills recently passed by the National Assembly. Senate Committee on Public Accounts issues 10-day ultimatum to NNPCL to respond to financial queries related to alleged discrepancies in its audited financial statements. And on the international scene, the U.S. Defense Secretary describes America's strikes on Iranian nuclear sites at the weekend as historically successful. Let's take a trip down memory lane now, shall we? The newly assented tax reform bills have been on the table for a while now. Since the introduction of the bills by President Bola Tinubu in October 2024, the bills brought various reactions, with some in support of the bills and others against. This report gives us the brief background.
After nearly 9 months of economic turbulence, dialogue and legislative action, President Bola Tinubu finally appends his signature today to 4 transformative tax reform bills, capping a long journey of fiscal overhaul. It all began October 2024 when President Tinubu formally transmitted the Nigeria Tax Bill, Tax Administration Bill, Revenue Service Bill, and Joint Revenue Board Bill to the National Assembly, marking the first step in his ambitious agenda to modernize Nigeria's tax system.
100% consent and assent of all of them.
By March 13, 2025, the House of Representatives approved the package with notable tweaks. VAT remained at 7.5% instead of the proposed 12.5%. Exemptions were made for minimum wage earners, and revenue sharing between federal and states was adjusted, capping accruable VAT for high-yielding states at 30%.
We actually have drafted a new withholding tax regulation already as we speak. The only reason why it hasn't been published is because some of the things we included require that we amend some of the existing laws. So we put the amendments in the emergency bill, waiting for the lawmakers to pass so we can then issue the regulation. But I can discuss the principles. If you are not liable to tax, then nobody will deduct withholding tax on you.
On May 9th, the Senate passed the revised bills endorsing the harmonized tax framework, including a modest VAT hike, global minimum tax provisions for big multinationals, and major reforms in petroleum profit tax administration under the newly fashioned Nigeria Revenue Service.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to repeal certain acts on taxation and consolidate the legal frameworks relating to taxation and enact the Nigeria Tax Bill to provide for taxation of income, transactions and instruments, and for later matters 2025, third reading taken and passed.
Throughout this process, consultations were extensive. Business groups, tax experts, governors, NGOs, and labor unions, including the Labour Congress, were engaged as the station reeled from strikes and protests in mid-2024 over cost of living pressures and subsidy removals.
We stand united against the unjust tax bill trying to bleed us dry. Crafted behind closed doors, this bill slaps heavy taxes on Nigerian workers, meager housing, transportation, and medical allowances, while letting the rich and corporations off the hook.
These reforms aim squarely at strengthening revenue collection, simplifying administration, enhancing intergovernmental coordination, and ultimately coaxing Nigeria's low tax-to-GDP ratio upward, all in service of recovery and sustainable investment.
The Senate Committee on Public Accounts has issued a 10-day ultimatum to NNPCL Limited to respond to 11 critical financial queries related to discrepancies in its audited financial statements, warning that failure to comply could attract serious constitutional consequences. The committee, chaired by Senator Ali Wadada, had days ago expressed outrage over what it described as mind-boggling and unacceptable financial irregularities uncovered in NNPCL books, including over 200 trillion naira in unexplained receivables and undocumented legal and audit fees spanning 2017 to 2023.
It is unacceptable. For that, this committee is giving NNPC 10 working days from today to appear before the committee with the relevant questions, answers to the questions earlier issued for this investigation to continue. 10 working days from today will be 10th of July. If at that day NNPC does not respond accordingly, then this committee will have no option than to invoke and assert all the powers available to the committee or to the Senate constitutionally. That, in a nutshell, will be termed, considered as contempt to the Senate. The Nigerian public is waiting to hear from us, because this has got to do with public funds. The group managing director should and must be in attendance. He should be the one to lead the committee, because at that point we will not, the committee will not accept any excuses, and to avoid excuses that will stall or delay the working of this committee wouldn't be accepted.
We head to Kaduna State now, where the Governor Obasani has visited families of victims of the attack on some travelers from Kaduna to Plateau State. The attack led to the death of 12 passengers, while 11 persons were injured. Governor Sani visited the affected families in Kudan local government area of Kaduna State as part of efforts to douse the tension and the rising temper.
Governor Obasani of Kaduna State is in Ungwandan social village in Kudan local government area of the state as part of efforts to de-escalate the tension that trailed the attack on some travelers from the community to Kuanpan local government area of Plateau State for a wedding of a relative. The governor joins the affected families to offer prayers for the departed. It serves its purpose as the relatives promise not to take laws into their hands.
Here in Kudan local government area, by the grace of God, we are living in peace with our Muslim brothers. We don't have problems with one another. We thank the governor for the actions he has taken since the incident happened. We will continue to live in peace. His Excellency has promised to compensate the families of the victims. This is the beginning of good things that will come to this community by the grace of God.
Everyone is living in peace, irrespective of religion.
Addressing the grieving community, Governor Obasani commends the people for not taking the law into their own hands and informs them that the federal government is taking steps to ensure justice for the victims.
Since the incident happened, I sent some of my commissioners under the able leadership of the Secretary to Kaduna State Government and a very high delegation to come to the community, talk to them, commiserate with them. And I also sent them a message. I'm happy to say that nobody in this community took law into his hand.
The governor also urged his colleagues to take steps to ensure the protection of travelers' rights to freedom of movement.
My message to other states and other governments is for them to try as much as possible to keep their people peacefully, because the Constitution of Nigeria have given everyone freedom to move everywhere he wants to go without any hindrance.
The governor rounded off his visit by promising to build a general hospital for the community and construct a road from Kudan to Basawa in Sabon-Geri local government area of the state.
Still ahead on the news at 10, federal government launches national flood insurance policy and implementation framework to support individuals and businesses in flood-prone communities. And that's in business news. Please join us again. Welcome back. We continue the news at 10 now. Let's head over to Abuja studios where Millicent Walker is standing by. Over to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Anne. Nigeria can only guarantee the high-performance culture in the service when the right people with the right skills are placed in the right roles. Well, that's according to President Bola Tinubu, who has ordered a comprehensive personnel and skills gap audit of the Federal Civil Service to deepen the personnel capacity. The President gave the directive at the International Civil Service Conference in Abuja.
President Bola Tinubu attends the second day of the International Civil Service Conference in Abuja to officially declare the event open.
Your Excellency.
The conference has in attendance heads of civil service from within and outside Nigeria, and the crux is reforms.
Together, we are advancing the civil service in Nigeria and beyond, and your insights will undoubtedly enrich our discussions on governance, public service reforms, and service excellence.
The goodwill messages focus on the need to strengthen institutions and for civil servants to have a change of mindset.
As you go through your conference, I wish you well. But I ask you, please, what is your mindset? Now is the time at this conference to create the best and new version of yourself.
SDG 16 on peace, justice and strong institutions is a cornerstone for the entire 2030 agenda. To achieve that vision, we must strengthen and professionalize the civil service, upholding ethical behavior and accountability, and achieving gender parity in decision-making.
I have been so impressed by the courage of Nigerian leaders to tackle difficult issues and launch the big and bold economic reforms now underway. I have no doubt that these reforms put Nigeria on the right track, and I have no doubt that civil servants at all levels are absolutely central to putting those reforms and the benefits of those reforms into practice.
President Tinubu is a special guest of honor. While appreciating the pivotal role civil servants play in policy implementation, he underscores the need for competence.
Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
The President also orders a comprehensive audit of personnel and skill gaps in the civil service.
I have authorized a comprehensive personnel audit and skill gap analysis across the Federal Civil Service to deepen capacity. I urge all responsible stakeholders to prioritize timely completion of this critical exercise to begin implementing targeted reforms and realize the full benefit of a more agile, competent, and responsive civil service.
The two-day conference is expected to be a transformative event that will foster collaboration and innovation in public service, positioning Nigeria as a key player in global civil service reforms.
Well, staying with the Nigerian Civil Service Week, the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria is calling on civil servants to work in unity for the good of the country. The Institute's president and chairman of the Governing Council, Mr. Ahmed Gobe, gave the charge while hosting heads of civil service of the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. The event was also attended by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. George Akume, as well as permanent secretaries of federal ministries. Our correspondent, Kumbi Abuluwade, has more.
The Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, a professional body for human resource management in Nigeria, is hosting this dinner for heads of service from the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. The president of the Institute kicks off the event by highlighting the importance of the Institute's membership.
So our heads of service from across the 36 states and the FCT, you are the heroes of public service. Our days are now open to admit public officials across states who are ready to invest for federalism and excellence in HR practice. These inductions do not just grant certificates to our new members. in the public service. They offer a vista of learning opportunities and professional networking to allow members to rapidly hone their knowledge and their skills.
Established in 1968, CIPM has spread its tentacles outside the shores of Nigeria, with branches in the United States, United Kingdom, and Canada, with the membership statistics spanning over 20,000 personnel, both from the public and civil service. However, invited guests laud the Institute's trajectory over the years, while emphasizing on the role public and civil servants play in national development.
We are all aware the civil service remains the engine room of governance of the backbone of policy continuity and institutional management. As such, reforming, modernizing, and professionalizing the civil service must remain a top priority.
Together, we are building a system that will stand the test of time. A civil service that is efficient, productive, incorruptible, and citizen-centered.
The head of service of the Federation also commended the Institute's effort in driving government reforms.
We're talking of collaboration at all levels. So if you listen to my speech, I also talked of collaboration not only with international development partners, but also local development partners, as well as professional bodies, as you mentioned, like the CIPM. So we are looking towards partnering with as many as are ready to add value to the reforms that are ongoing.
Beyond the speeches, CIPM is also awarding some of its members who have shown remarkable strides in promoting the Institute's membership among human resource personnel. As the 2025 Nigerian Civil Service Week commences, the Institute is reminding civil servants of their invaluable role with the charge to work in unity to secure a better future for the nation. Kumbi Abuluwade, Channels Television News.
Well, it was another dinner and award night, but this time for the Nigerian Academy of Engineering, where they held its 2025 Technology Dinner and Awards Night in Lagos, bringing together top engineers, innovators, industry leaders under one roof to spotlight Nigeria's engineering milestones and chart a path for future breakthroughs. The Academy's president, Professor Ramon Bello, underscored engineering as a backbone of national progress. He called on professionals and partners alike to deepen collaboration, drive solutions to Nigeria's most pressing challenges through bold, forward-thinking innovations.
The Nigerian Academy of Engineering 2025 Dinner and Awards Night begins on an inspiring note with an innovation exhibition spotlighting the ingenuity of finalists in the Academy's second National Innovation Competition.
Instead of importing, the main goal was to
welcoming guests, Academy President Professor Ramon Bello describes the evening as both a celebration of creativity and a tribute to engineering excellence driving Nigeria's future.
We come together to honor innovation, excellence, and unwavering commitment to engineering and to the promotion and recognition of outstanding achievements in engineering, innovation, entrepreneurship, and technological advancement in Nigeria.
The highlight of the night, the announcement of 7 outstanding finalists from the second National Innovation Competition. These innovators impressed judges with cutting-edge solutions in sustainable energy, infrastructure technology, and advanced engineering.
Please, a round of applause for them. Now that first prize...
Top honors go to academic and engineer Vitalis Anye, whose invention transforms discarded PET bottles into 3D printing filament, an eco-smart leap in sustainable manufacturing.
Congratulations.
Alongside honorary certificates, the top 3 winners share a prize pool of 20 million naira, generously sponsored by corporate partners supporting engineering innovation.
Going forward, we will try to refine this and potentially scale it up with
the seed grant that we've had so that we can even do more. And we want to actually build capacity and create a hub for additive manufacturing in the university. So that is basically what we are looking forward to.
Our drive here in the innovation competition is to ensure that we have things that are needed to solve our local problems that can be made for Nigerians and Africans in general, so that it can be have a lot of many products being made in Nigeria that can be totally recognized.
The evening also features a special travel fellowship grant worth $4,000 awarded to young engineer Cecilia Ako, recognizing promise and a potential in international research. The event concludes with tributes to fellows and organizations whose contributions have propelled the Academy's mission, strengthening engineering for national growth and global relevance. With a renewed focus on nurturing young talent and driving impactful solutions, the Academy sets its sight on shaping an engineering future that not only meets Nigeria's development goals, but also inspires global relevance.
And that's it from the nation's capital. It's over now to Dominic Iwiwu in Lagos for business news.
Thank you, Millicent. And on business news, the federal government has introduced the National Flood Insurance Policy to provide financial support for individuals and businesses located in flood-prone areas across the country. A representative in the Ministry of Environment, Mr. Mahmood Kambari, announced the initiative today at a National Technical Committee meeting on the development of the National Flood Insurance Policy and Implementation Framework in Abuja, the nation's capital. He explained that the implementation of the policy would reduce the financial burden on federal and state governments while also offering protection to citizens and businesses facing flood-related losses. Active as usual, former president of Nigeria gets on stage for a special interview as part of the conversation at the 32nd Afrexim Bank annual meeting in Abuja. The conversation is on Africa's strive to look inwards for development. However, his observations are not very pleasant.
Economically, Nigeria is not moving as it should be moving. Over the last 3 or so decades, we have taken 2 steps forward, 1 step aside, and maybe 1 or 2 steps backward. What should we do? I believe the beginning is knowledge. How many of our leaders even understand basic economics to be able to run the affairs of their country? Look at how we go about borrowing money and wasting money. Waste and corruption, they are strange bedfellows of development.
After 6 consecutive days of strong rally, Nigeria's stock markets bowed to the impact of profits taken as total value of listed equities drops by more than 300 billion naira today. Willie Bong tells us more.
Welcome to the Stock Market Report. Today, the market snapped a 6-day winning streak, pulling back for the first time this week. The all-share fell by 0.39% and losing the 121,000 points we hit yesterday. But no significant downward movement for the market cap as we see it remaining at 76 trillion naira. And this drop is on the back of profit-taking in stocks that have gained over time, especially in the consumer goods sector. We have names like Boa Foods losing 31 naira today, Cadbury losing about 3 naira, Guinness 2 naira, Dangote Sugar about 1 naira 40 kobo today. Now, in the oil and gas sector, those positive momentum seems to be waning off as the stock share about 6 naira 85 kobo of a share price after gaining 10% in yesterday's trading session, while losses we see in UBA, First Holdco, and Access Holdings drag down the banking index. On the flip side, you see some gains currently on the top 3 of the gainers chart, with Unilever leading that trend. Also, we see followed closely by SFS, Riyadh, and Nimet. Final trading day tomorrow. Let's see if the bull can make a comeback. Willie Bong, signing out.
Now let's find out how major global equity markets ended Thursday's trading session. And that's it on Business News. Back to Anne for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Dominic. In what's called signal a turning point in River State's long-running political crisis, there are strong indications that the suspended governor, Siminalayi Fubara, may be edging towards reconciliation with his political rivals in the State Assembly. All sources say the governor, Fubara, recently held a closed-door meeting with some members of the State House of Assembly led by the suspended Speaker, Martin Amewele. While details of this discussion are not made public yet, the meeting itself marks a significant moment in a power struggle that has left the state's political landscape fractured and volatile. And outside our shores, Iranian authorities have carried out a wave of arrests and executions of people suspected to be having links with Israeli intelligence agencies in the wake of the war between both countries. And this is coming after what officials have described as unprecedented infiltration of Iranian security services by agents. Here's Saman Puzo with more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5.
Well, good morning, everybody.
The U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has called U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites at the weekend historically successful. Speaking at a Pentagon news conference, Hegseth cited various assessments, including from the CIA and the UN's nuclear watchdog.
In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful.
It comes hours after Iran's supreme leader gave a statement to the nation, his first video message since the U.S. strikes, saying the U.S. had failed to achieve anything significant by attacking Iran's nuclear facilities and accusing Donald Trump of an unusually exaggerated account of what happened. In a post on X, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei also claimed victory over Israel and said Iran delivered a heavy slap to the U.S. in airstrikes on its military base in Qatar. New footage has also been released of the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear sites.
Because of decisive military action, President Trump created the conditions to end the war, decimating, choose your word, obliterating, destroying Iran's nuclear capabilities. How about the Israeli Atomic Energy Commission? The devastating U.S. strikes on Fordow destroyed the site's critical infrastructure and rendered the enrichment facility inoperable. Here's the head of the UN Atomic Energy Agency this morning, Rafael Grossi. U.S. and Israeli strikes caused enormous damage to Iran's nuclear sites.
A senior Hamas official has said that mediators have intensified their efforts to broker a new ceasefire and hostage release deal in Gaza, but the negotiations with Israel remain stalled. The comments came as US President Donald Trump said great progress was being made since Israel and Iran ended their 12-day war on Tuesday, and that his envoy Steve Witkoff thought an agreement between Israel and Hamas was very close. Israeli attacks across Gaza have killed at least 45 Palestinians in the last 24 hours, including some who were seeking aid. Meanwhile, the Israeli military announced that 7 soldiers had been killed in a bomb attack claimed by Hamas. US President Donald Trump has also called for Israel to pardon Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is on trial for alleged corruption. The Israeli Prime Minister denies charges of bribery, fraud and a breach of trust, for which he has been on trial since 2020. Israel's main opposition leader criticized Trump's statement, saying he should not intervene in a legal process in an independent state. 29 children who were taking their school exams in the Central African Republic have been killed in a crush after a nearby explosion caused panic. The blast on the second day of the high school finals on Wednesday occurred at an electricity transformer. Almost 6,000 students sitting the baccalaureate at a school in the capital ran in a panic, causing the crush. President Faustin Archange Touadéra has declared a period of national mourning. Police in Ecuador have recaptured the country's most wanted fugitive, drug lord Adolfo Marcias Villamar. Marcias, also known by the alias Fito, is the leader of the Los Choneros, a powerful criminal gang which is blamed for Ecuador's transformation from a tourist haven to a country with one of the highest murder rates in the region. He is also suspected of having ordered the assassination of presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio in 2023. North Korea is opening a beach resort that its leader Kim Jong-un hopes will boost tourism in the secretive communist regime. Wonsan Kalma on the east coast will open to domestic tourists on the 1st of July, 6 years after it was due to be completed. It is unclear when it will welcome foreigners. Kim grew up in luxury in Wonsan, where many of the country's elite have private villas. State media claims the resort can accommodate up to 20,000 visitors, occupying a 4-kilometre stretch of beach, with hotels, restaurants, shopping malls and a water park. And the astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla has created history by becoming the first ever Indian to set foot on the International Space Station. A live broadcast showed the Axiom 4 mission docking with the orbiting laboratory and its 4-member crew crossing over to the ISS. Group Captain Shukla is only the second Indian to travel to space.
I wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has been a part of this. I understand that this is not a personal accomplishment. It is a collective achievement of each and every one of you who has been a part of this journey.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Vice President of the International Fencing Federation, Nova Perovic, says the international body will continue to offer support to Nigeria and other African countries in general in the development of the sport. Lagos is hosting the ongoing 23rd African Fencing Championships at Charterhouse, Lagos, with over 150 fencers competing in the 5-day 12-event tournament.
FA is doing big efforts in programs for development of fencing in Africa. Every year, all the African countries, registered African countries, receive equipment, sponsorship for participation to world championships, for zonal championships like this one. And we are trying to bring the number of fencers to the respectable level in all 31 countries. It's not easy, but there is improvement in last 10 years.
Cristiano Ronaldo has inked a 2-year extension with Saudi Arabia's Al Nassr following months of speculation over which team he would sign for next season. The Portuguese superstar arrived in 2023 in the kingdom to play with the club, heralding a rush of players in the latter stages of their careers to the oil-rich country. Although Ronaldo was the Pro League's top scorer with 25 goals, he has been unable to win a Saudi or Continental trophy with Al Nassr, who lost in the Asian Champions League semi-finals last month. New IOC President Kirsty Coventry, in her first meeting of the International Olympics Committee Executive Board held earlier today, has called for more support for women's games. Coventry, who on Monday, became the first woman to lead the Olympic movement, had already signaled a change of direction on the politically inflammatory and scientifically complex issue of gender. That sports is back to you, Anne.
Thank you, Chris. And the main news again. 6 months after the gruesome murder of 24-year-old Youth Corps member Salomia Daidu, Nasarawa State High Court today found the primary suspect, Oluwatimileyin Ajayi, guilty, sentencing him to death by hanging. Also today, after months of consultations with relevant stakeholders, President Bola Tinubu finally appended his signature to the 4 tax bills recently passed by the National Assembly. The Senate Committee on Public Accounts had issued a 10-day ultimatum to the NNPCL to respond to financial queries against them. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Good night, and please stay safe.